Before we get into the case today, I love doing Murderous, and I know a lot of you love listening to it. There's now a way for you to help keep the show going and help with production costs through a monthly donation. Just scroll to the bottom of the episode description and click the support link. I really appreciate it.
You hear good things.
May 1960, Independence, Missouri. Patricia Jones picks up her desk phone at work. A brief conversation. No one else hears both sides. Only that she grabs her purse, says she'll be back soon, and walks out the door. She never returns. That evening, her car is found abandoned. Inside, nothing unusual. No signs of struggle, just absence. And in a small town where everyone knew everyone, absence became its own kind of alarm. 2 young children waited at home for a mother who never came back. Neighbors whispered about the missing wife, and they whispered about Sharon Kinne. Because in the span of 2 months, Sharon had buried her husband under suspicious circumstances, slid behind the wheel of a brand new Thunderbird with insurance money, and charmed her way into the arms of Patricia's husband. Now Patricia was gone. Days later, Patricia's body was discovered. 4 bullets in her chest, left in a field where young couples went to park. A young mother stolen from her children, her life cut short in the prime of it. And in the center of every whisper, one name kept returning. I'm Sidney Smith, and this is Murderous Podcast. This week's Murderous is Sharon Kinne. In part 2, The Widow and the Lover's Wife. Last time on Murders, we traced Sharon Kinne's beginnings in Independence, Missouri. A restless teenager who pressured James Kinne into marriage at 16. A wife and mother who longed for glamour while her husband preferred quiet stability. By March 1960, James was dead, shot while napping on the couch. Sharon told police their toddler pulled the trigger. Investigators accepted her story. No paraffin test, no real inquiry. Just a funeral, a life insurance payout, and Sharon suddenly free. She spent the money on a brand new Thunderbird. And behind the wheel, she remade herself. Not as a grieving widow, but as the most magnetic woman in town. Neighbors gossiped. Men lined up. Sharon liked the attention. But fast cars and easy charm weren't enough. She wanted more with Walter Jones. He was handsome, married, and already on her arm. But when Walter Jones couldn't give her everything she demanded, another woman would pay the price. It was spring of 1960 when Sharon crossed paths with Walter. He was a car salesman, the kind of man neighbors remembered as easygoing, polite. The fellow you wouldn't mind running into at church or the grocery store. His smile came easily. His handshake was firm. And he had a way of making everyone feel like the deal was just for them. Sharon didn't blend into his world. She disrupted it. Where Walter was steady, she was, Sharon. People who later saw them together recalled this sharp contrast. Her laughter carrying across her room, the way she leaned in just a little too close. Her eyes flashing with the same confidence that had made her the center of attention all the way back in high school. But their connection was immediate. What began as a casual flirtation at the dealership quickly evolved into something more. The two started meeting privately, away from the eyes of Walter's wife and children. Sharon had found her new man. But he had a family. At home was Patricia Jones, his wife of just a few years. Patricia was 23 years old, a young mother already raising two little girls. Friends described her as sweet, grounded, the kind of woman who steadied a household with quiet comfort. She wasn't flashy, not the type to dominate a room. Her beauty was softer, understated, warm brown eyes, an easy smile, a gentleness that made her beloved among friends and neighbors. At church socials, Patricia was one refilling everyone's coffee cups, helping gather children for Sunday school, laughing politely at the men's jokes without ever pushing herself into the spotlight. One neighbor recalled, Patricia didn't need to be noticed. She was just steady, the kind of wife and mother people trusted. She was the steady hand that made Walter's outward charm possible. Walter knew it. He spoke of Patricia with respect, even affection. Coworkers remembered him saying he loved his wife, that she kept him grounded. And his neighbors often saw Patricia on the porch with her daughters, calm and present, a mother fully rooted in her family life. But then there's that other one, Sharon. With Sharon, Walter found that other thing, that 180. Walter found a rush because she was bold, confident, and relentless. She demanded his time, his attention, and his affection. For Sharon, being the mistress wasn't enough. The thrill of sneaking away to Lover's Lane or grabbing quick meetings in the middle of the day might have been enough for someone else, but not for her. She pressed Walter to go further, to leave Patricia, to give her what James never had. This wasn't about comfort. It wasn't even about passion. Sharon wanted control. She wanted Walter to choose her openly, publicly, with no hesitation. Those around Sharon noticed her flaunting it. A friend later told reporters, she didn't seem to care who knew. She liked the power of having another woman's husband wrapped around her finger. But Walter was not going to play that game. He was cautious. He resisted. He still came home to Patricia each night, where dinner was on the table, children climbed into his lap, and life looked the way a life was supposed to. Friends of Patricia remembered her confiding in them, not about fear, but about everyday worries, stretching money, keeping the girls happy, planning small family outings. One close friend recalled, she loved Walter. You could tell. She thought he was her partner, her life. She never suspected what was really going on. Walter told Sharon he couldn't leave, that he loved her, yes, but that his loyalty to Patricia and the girls mattered too much. And in that split between Sharon's hunger for possession and Walter's tether to his family, the stage was set for tragedy. Because for Sharon, mistress was never going to be enough. By May of 1960, Walter was a man under siege. He had been swept into Sharon Kinne's orbit just weeks earlier. An affair that seemed thrilling at first, but was already curdling. Walter was devoted to his wife, Patricia, that young mother, that non-flashy Patricia, who, again, was just the opposite of Sharon. Just steady and just sweet. That person that we all have in our life, that one person, you know who they are, who just seems to remember everyone's birthday and just had a warm heart to them. And so here she was raising their two little girls and content with being non-glamorous. Sharon wanted Walter, and Walter began pulling away. And when he did, Sharon tightened her grip. She told him she was pregnant. Again, who knew if it was true or not, much like when she was in high school. For Walter, that claim, though, was terrifying. But for her, again, it was leverage. The break between them was bitter. Walter stayed with Patricia, and within days, Patricia received a mysterious phone call at her office. And the coworker remembered that image of her taking the call, listening intently, and then calmly gathering her purse and saying she'll be back and never returning. Coworkers later remembered the moment with chilling clarity. She hung up, grabbed her purse, told them I'll be back soon. Just a quick errand, she said with a smile. There was no urgency, no sign of fear. Just the casual promise of a woman who fully intended to return to her desk. By nightfall, Patricia's car was discovered abandoned. The mother of two had simply vanished. Enter John Bodiza. He was a 20-year-old college student, tall and quiet, who had fallen under Sharon's spell months earlier. Some called him a boyfriend, others just another young man drawn into her confidence. Sharon reached out to him the night Patricia went missing. She suggested they drive out together, look for Patricia. To John, it might have seemed like an odd errand, but he went. And at 20 years old, a beautiful woman, older woman, paying him some attention, it's not hard to believe that he would do this. And then, almost like a miracle, they found Patricia. Her body was lying on the ground in a Lover's Lane area, a field where teenagers parked their cars on summer nights. The scene was grim. Patricia's stillness against the dirt, her purse discarded. The mother who had left work with every intention on coming home to her daughters was now lifeless. Her story ending in a field. And Sharon was there, close enough to appear concerned, but not shocked. Suspicion built immediately. The murder weapon matched the caliber used in James Kinne's death just 2 months earlier. Sharon's alibi was shaky. And the coincidence of her discovering Patricia's body with John strained belief. Independence was rattled. One husband dead, one wife murdered. And in both cases, whispers pointed back to the same woman, Sharon Kinne. By late May, Independence police could no longer ignore the trail of bodies and whispers converging on one woman's name. Patricia had been found in a Lover's Lane, 4 bullets to the chest. the same caliber that killed Sharon's husband. Not long before, the missing bullets in James' old gun box, the convenient discovery of Patricia's body by Sharon and her new companion, John, the stories of jealousy, and the phone call Patricia's coworkers remembered her taking before she vanished. All of it painted a picture that was impossible to dismiss. So when Sharon was arrested for Patricia's murder, investigators went a step further. They quietly reopened James Kinne's case. What had once been written off as a toddler's tragic mistake was now reconsidered with sharper eyes. But here was the problem. There was no smoking gun. Literally. No murder weapon ever tied directly to Sharon. No fingerprints on the bullets. No paraffin test ever conducted to prove she fired a weapon. What prosecutors had instead was a mosaic of motives, jealousies, and a woman whose lifestyle didn't line up with the grieving widow she claimed to be. By June of 1961, the case went before a jury. The trial of Sharon Kinne drew crowds from across Missouri. Reporters filled the benches, fascinated by the glamorous young widow accused of killing her lover's wife. Headlines described her as a pretty brunette with the face of an angel and the morals of an alley cat. Another paper called her calm, composed, and strangely detached, even as the details of Patricia's death were read aloud. Rarely did they focus on Patricia, the woman whose life had been cut short. Inside the courtroom, the prosecution built their case around Sharon's affair with Walter. They described a woman fueled with jealousy, unwilling to accept mistress status, and motivated not just by passion, but by financial comfort. They pointed to the empty gun box in the Kinne home, to the .22 caliber bullets that matched Patricia's wounds. They underscored Sharon's lies, her calculated charm, and the chilling reality that two people close to her had died in the span of 2 months. But the defense was clever. They didn't try to paint Sharon as virtuous. In fact, they admitted her flaws, her reckless spending, her infidelity, her hunger for attention. They framed her as immoral, but not homicidal. They suggested investigators were grasping at circumstantial straws, and they leaned heavily on doubt. John, the man who had conveniently been by Sharon's side when Patricia's body was found, could have been the true culprit. Sharon, they argued, was simply caught in the storm of gossip and suspicion. The courtroom hung on Sharon's every move. She dressed in conservative skirts, pearls, and modest heels. She smiled at jurors, her expressions carefully measured, her demeanor one of calm composure. One reporter wrote, she looked like a school teacher correcting papers that a woman accused of gunning down her rival. And then, after only an hour and a half of deliberation, the jury returned. Not guilty. The swiftness of their decision shocked prosecutors. But what came next stunned nearly everyone. As Sharon gathered her belongings, a juror leaned over and asked for her autograph. A female spectator recalled it in disbelief. They weren't judging her. They were admiring her. It was a detail that cut to the bone. A young, attractive widow who walked out of a courtroom not because the evidence was weak, though it was, but because perception had been justice in her favor. Sharon Kinne was free again. And Independence, Missouri had to reckon with a chilling possibility. What if the law had just let a killer walk? Sharon walked out of that courthouse, not with the weight of suspicion on her shoulders, but with a smile. A smile that seemed to say the system had done exactly what she expected it to do. The newspapers rushed to describe her: attractive, petite, the pretty widow acquitted, not accused murderer, not 2 deaths, no convictions. Just a headline-ready image of a young woman who had outlasted scandal. Reporters noted her poise, the way she dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief during the trial, the way her voice trembled at just the right moments. And then how quickly that sadness vanished once the verdict came down. Neighbors were split. Some shook their heads, whispering about the woman they'd seen slipping into the passenger seat of Walter's car, about how convenient it was that both James and Patricia were now gone. Others seemed charmed, almost proud, that someone from their little town could command so much attention, hold a courtroom in the palm of her hand, and walk out free. Patricia's family never saw the charm. Her mother said afterward that the trial had been like losing her daughter twice. Once when Patricia's body was found, and again when her killer walked free. Friends from her church told reporters Patricia had been a devoted wife and mother. The kind of woman who ironed shirts before bed and baked birthday cakes from scratch. One neighbor said through tears, Patricia was steady. You could count on her, and now she's gone, and somehow Sharon gets to go home to her children. The contrast was brutal. Patricia's daughters were still asking when their mother would be back. Sharon's children, meanwhile, were waiting for her at home. One woman put it bitterly: pretty is one thing, but you can't bury your husband and your lover's wife without people wondering. Through it all, Sharon maintained her composure. She was only 21 years old. 2 people dead behind her, 2 children at home, and a new life ahead, untethered by a guilty verdict, unshaken by suspicion. The image that lingered wasn't Patricia's casket lowering into the earth. It was Sharon, stylish in her tailored dress, slipping behind the wheel of that gleamy Thunderbird, a cigarette between her fingers. Patricia's family mourned. Walter faded back into the background. And Sharon looked untouchable. You've been listening to a production of Sidney Smith Creative, LLC, and the You Hear Good Things podcast network. All rights reserved. For more true crime stories to stay with you, follow Murders Podcast on your favorite platform. Join the quiet jury community by joining us each and every week. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious.